What if I told you that happiness isn't just a feeling? It's actually a complex neurological process that you can learn to influence. That your brain has specific happiness circuits that light up like a Christmas tree when you experience joy. And here's the kicker. Science is now showing us exactly how to strengthen these circuits. But before we dive into brain science, let me ask you something. Have you ever wondered why some people seem naturally happier than others? Why can your mood shift so dramatically from one day to the next? The answer lies in a fascinating network of brain regions that scientists are just beginning to understand. Picture this. Deep inside your skull, there's an intricate highway system carrying signals of pleasure, reward, and satisfaction. The main stations on this happiness highway include the orbitofrontal cortex, the nucleus accumbens, and the ventral tegmental area, areas scientists call hedonic hotspots. These aren't just random brain regions, they're your personal happiness factories. The nucleus accumbens, for instance, is like your brain's reward center. When something good happens, you taste chocolate, get a hug, or achieve a goal. This region floods with dopamine, creating that warm, satisfied feeling we call happiness. But here's where it gets interesting. The ventral tegmental area acts like the dopamine delivery truck, sending pleasure signals throughout your brain's reward network. Think of dopamine as your brain's feel-good messenger. It doesn't just make you happy in the moment, it actually teaches your brain what to seek out again. That's why activities that boost dopamine, like exercise, social connection, or accomplishing something meaningful, can literally rewire your brain for more happiness over time. Now, dopamine isn't working alone. Your brain produces what scientists call the happy chemicals, a quartet of neurotransmitters that work together like a well-orchestrated symphony. There's serotonin, often called the happiness hormone, which stabilizes your mood and creates that sense of well-being and satisfaction. Then there's oxytocin, the cuddle hormone, released during physical touch and social bonding. And don't forget endorphins, your body's natural painkillers that create euphoria during exercise and laughter. But here's what's really mind-blowing. These chemicals don't just randomly appear. Your thoughts, behaviors, and even your environment can directly influence their production. When you practice gratitude, for example, you're literally increasing dopamine production and strengthening the neural pathways associated with positive emotions. This brings us to one of the most revolutionary discoveries in neuroscience, neuroplasticity. Your brain isn't fixed. It's constantly rewiring itself based on your experiences. This means the neural pathways associated with happiness can actually be strengthened through practice. Research shows that mindfulness meditation literally grows gray matter in brain regions linked to emotional regulation. People who practice gratitude regularly show increased cortical thickness in areas responsible for decision-making and emotional control. It's like going to the gym, but for your happiness circuits. The prefrontal cortex, your brain's CEO, plays a crucial role here. This region exerts top-down control over emotional responses, essentially acting as your happiness regulator. When you strengthen the connection between your prefrontal cortex and emotional centers like the amygdala, you become better at maintaining positive mood states and bouncing back from setbacks. But wait, there's a plot twist in our happiness story. Scientists have discovered something called the satisfaction paradox. As people age and face declining health and loss of loved ones, you'd expect happiness to plummet. Right? Wrong. Older adults often report higher life satisfaction than younger people, despite objective quality of life measures suggesting the opposite. This paradox reveals something profound about how our brains process happiness. It turns out there are two distinct types of well-being: hedonic and eudaimonic. Hedonic happiness is about immediate pleasure, the dopamine hit from eating ice cream or buying something new. Eudaimonic happiness is about meaning, purpose, and engagement, the deep satisfaction that comes from living according to your values. Young brains are wired for novelty-seeking and immediate rewards, driven by that powerful dopamine system. But as we age, our neural focus shifts toward the prefrontal cortex and default mode network, areas associated with reflection, meaning-making, and emotional regulation. This neural transition helps explain why older adults often experience what researchers call learned happiness. Here's something that might surprise you. Happiness is literally contagious at the neural level. When you see someone else smile or share their joy, specific brain networks called the mentalizing system and mirror neuron system activate in your own brain. These systems include regions like the medial prefrontal cortex and temporoparietal junction, which help you understand and literally feel what others are experiencing. Studies show that being surrounded by happy people increases your own likelihood of experiencing happiness by up to 25%. Your brain's empathy circuits don't just help you understand others' emotions, they actually amplify positive emotions through shared neural activation. The anterior insular and anterior cingulate cortex create this emotional resonance, making happiness a genuinely social phenomenon. This discovery has massive implications. It means that enhancing empathy and social connection isn't just nice, it's a neurologically based strategy for improving community well-being. When we strengthen our capacity for empathy, we're literally enhancing our collective happiness potential. Now let's talk about happiness's arch nemesis, chronic stress. When you're constantly stressed, your brain undergoes some pretty dramatic changes that directly undermine happiness. The amygdala, your brain's alarm system, becomes hyperactive, while the prefrontal cortex, your emotional regulator, weakens. Chronic stress also disrupts the balance between two crucial brain circuits, one that motivates reward-seeking behavior linked to pleasure, and another that motivates avoiding misery. When stress tips this balance, you end up with anhedonia, the inability to feel pleasure, along with low energy, worry, and negative expectations. It's like your brain's happiness highway gets blocked by roadwork that never ends. The stress hormone cortisol is particularly destructive. When released chronically, it actually damages brain regions critical for mood regulation, including the hippocampus and anterior cingulate cortex. This creates a vicious cycle where stress makes you less capable of experiencing happiness, which creates more stress. This is where things get really exciting. Scientists are developing technologies that can directly influence your brain's happiness circuits. Transcranial magnetic stimulation, or TMS, uses magnetic pulses to modulate neural activity in regions like the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex. Real-world data shows that up to 83% of patients with treatment-resistant depression experience improvement with TMS, with over half achieving full remission. But the future holds even more promise. Researchers are developing closed-loop brain stimulation systems that monitor your neural activity in real time and adjust stimulation accordingly. Imagine a device that could detect when your happiness circuits are underactive and provide precisely targeted stimulation to boost your mood. There's also the emerging field of neurofeedback combined with mindfulness. These technologies give you a real-time window into your brain activity, allowing you to literally see your happiness circuits in action and learn to modulate them consciously. It's like having a dashboard for your emotional state. What's really revolutionary is that neuroscience is moving toward personalized happiness interventions. Just like we have different fingerprints, we all have unique neural signatures for happiness. Some people have more active reward circuits, others have stronger emotional regulation networks. Some are more sensitive to social rewards, others to achievement-based satisfaction. Understanding your personal brain type could allow for customized interventions. If your reward circuits are underactive, you might benefit from activities that boost dopamine. If your emotional regulation networks need strengthening, mindfulness and cognitive training might be more effective. We're moving toward a future where happiness enhancement isn't one size fits all, but precisely tailored to your unique neural architecture. But with great power comes great responsibility. The ability to manipulate brain states for happiness raises profound ethical questions. Should we be artificially enhancing our mood? What happens to authenticity when happiness can be induced with the flip of a switch? Could society pressure people to conform to certain emotional norms? There are concerns about mental integrity and cognitive liberty, your right to control your own mental states. There's also the question of equity. If happiness-enhancing technologies become available, who gets access? Could this create a new form of inequality between the neurologically enhanced and unenhanced? These aren't just philosophical questions. They're practical concerns that society will need to address as these technologies become more powerful and accessible. Adding another layer of complexity is the fact that happiness means different things to different cultures. Western societies often emphasize individual pleasure and positive emotions, while many Eastern cultures focus more on balance, harmony, and accepting both positive and negative emotions as part of life. This cultural variation shows up in the brain too. The neural networks associated with happiness can be influenced by cultural values and practices. What constitutes authentic happiness in one culture might not translate directly to another, making the development of universal happiness interventions challenging. One of the biggest hurdles in happiness neuroscience is measurement. How do you objectively measure something as subjective as happiness? Current methods rely heavily on self-reports, which can be biased by social desirability, memory issues, and cultural differences. Scientists are working on innovative solutions. They're using experience sampling methods that capture real-time emotional states throughout the day. They're combining brain imaging with physiological measures like cortisol levels and heart rate variability. They're even exploring AI-powered analysis of language patterns and social media data to get more objective measures of well-being. The goal is to develop neural signatures that can predict individual differences in happiness levels. Imagine a future where a brain scan could tell you your happiness potential and guide personalized interventions. Speaking of individual differences, did you know that about 30 to 40% of your happiness is determined by your genes? Twin studies show that there's a substantial genetic component to subjective well-being. But don't worry, genetics isn't destiny. The remaining 60 to 70% of your happiness is influenced by your environment, behaviors, and choices. This is where the power of neuroplasticity comes in. Even if you're genetically predisposed to lower baseline happiness, you can still rewire your brain through targeted practices and interventions. Scientists are also discovering epigenetic factors, how environmental influences can actually change gene expression related to mood and well-being. This means your lifestyle choices don't just affect your current happiness. They can potentially influence how your happiness-related genes function. So what does this all mean for you? The research suggests several evidence-based strategies for enhancing your brain's happiness circuits. Mindfulness meditation strengthens the prefrontal cortex and reduces amygdala reactivity, improving emotional regulation and reducing stress. Just 8 weeks of practice can produce measurable structural changes in your brain. Gratitude practices increase dopamine production and strengthen reward-related neural pathways. When you actively appreciate what you have, you're literally training your brain to notice and amplify positive experiences. Social connection and empathy activate oxytocin systems and strengthen the neural networks involved in emotional sharing and support. Remember, happiness is contagious at the neurological level. Physical exercise triggers endorphin release and promotes neuroplasticity, creating new neural connections that support mood regulation and resilience. We're standing at the threshold of a happiness revolution. Brain stimulation technologies are becoming more precise and accessible. Neurofeedback systems are getting smaller and more user-friendly. AI is helping us understand the complex patterns of brain activity that correlate with well-being. But perhaps most importantly, we're learning that happiness isn't just about feeling good in the moment. True well-being involves a balance between immediate pleasure and deeper meaning, between individual satisfaction and social connection, between accepting what is and striving for what could be. The neuroscience of happiness isn't just academic research, it's a roadmap for living better. It shows us that happiness isn't a luxury or a byproduct of success. It's a fundamental aspect of human functioning that we can understand, measure, and enhance. Your brain is constantly changing, constantly rewiring itself based on your experiences and choices. Every moment of gratitude, every act of kindness, every mindful breath is literally reshaping your neural networks for greater well-being. The question isn't whether you can become happier. Science shows you absolutely can. The question is, what will you do with this knowledge? The happiness highway in your brain is always under construction. The good news? You're the architect, the construction crew, and the driver all rolled into one. And now, thanks to neuroscience, you finally have the blueprint. Subscribe the channel. Thank you. See you later.